Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I'm going to show you how I, not quite destroy, but still paint a Space Marine. This is one of those from the Leviathan box, the Infernus squad. I painted not great. I had so much fun a couple of months ago when I tried, when I asked you guys for your worst idea for color schemes, and I painted up one of them. It was just a lot of fun, and then I thought, well, I actually have an idea of my own that I want to try out. And so this is a video of me showing you how I did that and what it ended up looking like. So as you can see, I started off with a model that's been primed using the White Scars primer from Citadel, and then I started painting it with a contrast paint called Fluorescent Purple. It's one of the newer contrast paints, and it's definitely the purple I like the best of the contrast range. Then I painted the other half of the Space Marine using another contrast paint. This one is called Snakebite Leather. It's from the first sort of round of contrast paints, and it's just a really nice all-round brown contrast paints that work really well on fur and leather and stuff. And of course, as you can see, contrast paints don't really work that well on flat surfaces such as big armor plates on a Space Marine. It's not what they're designed to do, so it's completely fair. But I'm not too worried about it because I will be covering it up with textures as we go on. Then, just to make the whole thing a little bit more atrocious, I grab an orange contrast paint, and this one is called Magmadroth Flame. And I use that for the stuff that I would usually paint in, metallic colors. Because I think purple and brown, those were my main colors that I wanted to use, because I just thought purple and brown, that is just awful. And then I thought, well, what would really clash with those two colors? And I thought of orange, and well, there you go. Then I start to work on the texture on the armor plates, and the first color I'm working with here is called Pterodon Turquoise. It's also one of the contrast paints, and you can see that I'm just sort of painting it in a kind of cross-hatching style, which means just making a whole bunch of tiny diagonal lines that cross each other, and that's basically it. It's actually a fairly simple technique. You just need to have the patience for it, really. I don't have a lot of patience for doing, layers and layers and layers of smooth blends, but I find working in a more graphic sort of style that just fits my temper a little bit better, and I think it ends up usually looking quite good, even though, of course, that is not the that's not the intention with this paint job. For the highlight here, I use a color called Ultraviolet, which is from Huge Miniatures. It's a fluorescent paint, even though, as you'll see later on under the UV light, it's not one of those fluorescent paints that really light up a room. It sort of tends to be like the violet and blue colors are a little bit less sort of neon in their effect than the pink and the greenish tones, I find. Then for the last layer of highlights, I grab a pink color, and this one is called Cyberpink, and it's also from Huge Miniatures. I'm always a little bit hesitant as to how I want to highlight purple stuff, just because I find that if you just, mix the purple with a bit of white to create the last layer of highlight, it tends to just look really pastel. Whereas if you use some pink paint to highlight with, it tends to make it pop a little bit more, but at the same time, of course, it sort of ruins the whole idea of it being just purple and makes it look purple pink. So I haven't really found a good solution for this yet, I guess, but I tend to go more towards the purple highlights, the pink highlights than the lighter purple highlights. But I would be really interested to hear if any of you guys have any great ideas for how to really highlight purple and really make it pop. Next up, I went through the exact same process with the brown armor, just of course with different colors. And for the shadow color here, I just mixed in some of the Snakebite Leather that I had used as the base color with just a little bit of black, just to make it easy and make sure that it would sort of have the same tone and hue, while at the same time just being that a bit darker so that it would be easy to see where the shadows actually were placed. This was just, as I said, a painting experiment just to have fun, so I'm not too worried about stuff that's not quite even and doesn't quite fit exactly the way it perhaps should. I just really like making experiments, and I like having fun, and I think it's just sort of freeing painting something that's not supposed to be like really beautiful at the end, and it's not a huge project. This was just something that I could paint in a day and, see what it would look like, basically. For the first layer of highlights, the ones you can see I'm making here, I mixed in some of the snakebite leather with some beige color. I believe this was a wraithbone from also from Citadel. Just again to make sure I had the same tone and hue, just a little bit lighter. And the last layer of highlight was just a bit of the wraithbone without any brown mixed in. I thought that would be the one that would fit the best. Even though, as I said, this is a color scheme I chose because I thought it would look awful in the end, I try to be as sort of faithful to the idea as I can while trying to execute the color scheme, if that makes sense. I don't want to just mess it up on purpose by choosing, by choosing a technique that really isn't gonna work, or not trying to make the colors work together when I have chosen a set color. I want to be as kind to it as I can to sort of give it a fair chance. I don't know if that makes sense. That's probably just me. Then for highlighting the orange, I grabbed another color from Huge Miniatures, and this one is called Laser Orange. And it's a lot more vibrant in real life than it is here on camera, but it just, my camera just has a lot of trouble picking it up somehow when I'm filming, whereas when I'm just taking a still photo, it is a lot easier to see. Then I finished up the orange parts with a highlight of a color called Starfire Yellow, and it's also from Huge Miniatures, and it's one of the most vibrant sort of yellow neon colors you can get, and I just really like it, and I try to include it in almost all of my paint jobs, I think. So while I was having a lot of fun with it and thought that it looked quite, well, not great, exactly the way I had thought it would, I decided I just wanted to give it just a little bit extra, and so I grabbed a green color from Huge Miniatures. This is called Gamma Green, and I used that to do an edge highlight of every single armor panel, both the brown and the purple. I sort of thought it might help the whole thing look even more ridiculous, but also help tie it together just a little bit. It was just it was a lot of fun, and it felt really silly. Then I wanted the green edge highlight to just have a little bit of a highlight, and so I took another color from Huge Miniatures that is called Quantum Green, which is just slightly more yellow in tone, and I used that for just sort of bits and pieces where I thought it would be nice to have a bit of a highlight color. And here you can see the final result. I'm actually I'm not quite sure how to put this, because I don't think these colors work well together, and I especially don't like the brown color, which is also what I was expecting. Brown armor, maybe there are people who can really pull it off and make it look great, but I don't think I'm one of them. I'm not, based on this. But on the other hand, it's just so strange and weird. And I kind of like it, and I think it looks quite cool actually with the neon colors on the gun. I usually just use metallics on the gun. I never paint them in any sort of neon colors, because I don't know why actually. I just don't seem to think that neon goes well with weapons, but it would work on armor. I'm not sure actually. But now that I have tried it out, I think I will I'll paint more neon weapons at least. That was quite fun. You can also see here what it looks like under a UV light, which is of course always fun. And I think it looks a little bit better under the UV light, because then you can't see the brown colors. So I don't know. I don't think this is by far my best paint job at all, but I think it's one of the most fun painting experiences I've had in a little while, just because there's just something cool and fun about doing something that is silly, and where you don't feel like the need to do something that looks great, because the whole idea was to try out something that you thought would look hideous anyways. It's just sort of a creative, liberating feeling that I think you should definitely try out yourself if you haven't already. So that was what I wanted to show you today, but before you leave, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank the wonderful people who support Dice and Demons on Patreon. So thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Scott Broadway, Jordan Hollands, Andrea Correa, Anthony Polcastro, Queen's Wolf, JJ Walls, Gwenael, Mola Mola, TJ Kubiak, Mando Project, Starcon85, S. Beer, Echinocicus, Firelord21, and Elliot Philby. If you also want to help support the channel, you can do so over on Patreon, and I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. I will also leave a link to the Huge Miniatures web store where you can get yourself some of those cool fluorescent paints, and I also have a 5% discount code that you can use, and if you use that you get 5% off, which is always cool, but you also help support this channel as well. If you have any sort of questions, comments, suggestions, ideas for future videos, any sort of thing along those lines, please leave that in the comment section and I will do my very best to get back to you. Also remember that you can always follow me as Dice and Demons over on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram if you want to stay up to date on my painting projects. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!